And just like that, and I'm pretty sure this would be the last time I use that pun for this show,
Okay.
but
All right.
it'll be the last time I use that pun for this show. Welcome back to another review from Big Gold Belt of Just Like That. That's it, yeah. And
Yeah,
just like that, I
and
always,
just like
keep
that.
on. I
Yeah.
always leave out the beginning part for some weird reason of this Sex and the City sequel. Now, the episode here, episode 3 of the first season, is called "When in Rome." First, let
Hmm.
me ask my beautiful, vibracious, uh, 60s, because
Oh
not
my
the age of
gosh.
60s, but we talking about the 60s. Neo Soul Guardian, goddess of a co-host, Amaya
What's up,
Desire.
y'all?
How you doing this evening?
I'm good. How are you? You've been sipping more than me, huh? I need to catch
Hey,
up.
look, I am about 3/4 of a bottle in. I got these big ass wine glasses. I don't know how to measure
Okay.
wine properly.
I need to get some of those. I do. I actually need to get some. I love them.
I know I just felt like a real housewife of Atlanta or someone from Sex and the City, but this big glass of wine. And speaking of that, we're going to get into the meat of this episode, the confrontation we have been waiting for. If you're a fan of Sex and the City, you've been waiting for this confrontation between Natasha and Carrie since
Hmm.
season 3, when Natasha caught Carrie leaving Big's apartment and they had it out. What were your thoughts, Amaya, about this big, not only just seeing Natasha and Carrie have it out, but the big reveal that Big, in his will, left his
Hmm.
ex-wife $1 million?
Hmm. Listen, I was kind of shocked. I wasn't expecting it to be. I don't know what I was expecting, to be quite honest with you, but seeing it be so full of emotion from both of them was very much like, wow, like this still, it hurts. It has
Mm-hmm.
feels to it. Um, and the whole fact that Carrie went down this rabbit hole of, trying to
Mm.
figure out what she did and didn't know about Big, and then, what did she know about them? Were they keeping in contact? And so I think she got some semi closure, that no, they haven't spoken since the divorce. But, I kind of feel like what she said was true, is that this was Big's way of just saying, I'm sorry. And, if you
Mm-hmm.
got it to give, right? Well, shit, say I'm sorry to me too. You know what I mean?
Now, could it be because when we see them two finally on screen with one another, again, as you said, we feel all the emotion that's been building up. It's been what, this happened in season 3 of Sex and the
Yeah, it's
City,
been a while.
where
It's been
this
a while.
happened. So for it to be brought back up again, and for those emotions to feel so raw, considering that we're also 10 years removed from the movie, so that means this whole last time they were around each other
It's some
15
years
years
now.
ago,
Right. Yep.
and yet you still
Exactly.
see the raw emotion from both of them as they have to deal with this. And Curry, especially because in this episode, as we see from the beginning, she's spiraling out of control, looking for
Absolutely.
something to hold on to. And the thought, I believe at least, the thought of Big having something with Natasha was her last way of holding on to him, along
Hmm.
with Go-Go, the mystery dog that no one knew
Go
about.
Gogi. Yeah.
Gogi,
Oh my
Gogi, the mystery
gosh.
dog that nobody knew about, that was in the wallet. So, from everything we've seen with Curry and Natasha here, would you like to see more Natasha? Because I still feel she was always a very interesting character that we never got enough of on Sex in the City. Or do you
She's
think, nah, this is it and we
interesting.
good?
I mean, yeah, how would they rope her in though? You know what I mean? She's saying that she's not gonna take the money that Big left.
Mm-hmm.
Carrie is telling her that this is his way of apologizing, so she should. And when you think about it, I mean, you got 2 kids, girl. Take that money, put it in a trust fund, college fund, do whatever. At this point, go on vacation, right? I just don't know how they would add her into the mix, especially with so much happening in this episode with our main
Clearly, yes,
characters.
yes.
I'm not really sure how that would work. So I'm gonna say pause on Natasha for right now, and maybe we'll get back to her.
All right, now here's a question for you and the audience. How many of you thought that when Natasha said she had boys, that those were Big's kids, and that's why he gave her the money?
Absolutely. As soon as she says she got a son, you got a kid. Like, how old is this kid?
It,
You know,
it, it was even on Carrie's face when she said it, like, "Oh, is
yes,
that
it
why he left
was.
you $1 million?"
Yeah. I agree.
So as we
Definitely
get
thought that.
to, well, not the very end, but the biggest moment for us at the end of the episode between Natasha and Carrie, let's go all the way back to the beginning, which was the reading of Big's will. Like, I love this scene with his secretary, who, amazing, as Carrie said, she knows everything about him, down to his blood type. But also just in this scene, how supportive Miranda was for Carrie. Like, how would it feel to have to go through that experience with your best friend? Like, how would you feel going through that, Amaya? Like, something like being in that environment as your friend is going, like, this is the last stage of everything in that relationship, really. Like, how did that scene hit you?
I mean, you know, I'm just thinking about, you know, we're getting older, right? And the idea that these are things that we absolutely have to think about, life insurance, will planning, and things of that nature.
Yes.
I feel like there was nobody I'd rather go through it with. And you know, and it's weird because for me, I would probably say that I would have my sister and my best friend there, or my sister and my brother there, right? But I do have a best friend that I've known since 98, and this is about to be 2023. So as you can imagine, we've been through some things together. And the idea that having her by my side in this scenario is kind of crazy.
Now, here's the other thing. We also, just skip past the will, because we got to the most interesting part when he left Natasha $1 million. That's the part that blew us all away. But right after that, we get another scene of a moment people who love Sex and the City have been waiting for, and that is Stanford and Charlotte, as he finally addresses her, because she has always treated him like the unwanted third wheel. And when he tells her, like, I feel like you just don't think I'm involved in this friendship at all. When we see the episode prior to this at Big's funeral, what did he say? Like, I need to be there for my best friend. And he's front and center with Carrie. Like, I know it's a minuscule moment. It's not even that big of a moment. But for people who love Sex and the City, that was a big moment for him to finally address her in that way. Did you feel anything from that, Amaya?
I felt like it was about time, right? And you know, it's something to be said, and there's something that my mom used to tell me a lot. She would say that, you know, I'm somebody's friend, but they're not necessarily my friend, right? And I feel like in this situation, Charlotte and Stanford they're associates. They're Carrie's friends, right? But they are Carrie's friend. And so I think that maybe they wanted it, or, you know, even maybe Stanford wanted a little bit more of a connection, whereas Charlotte just wanted to make sure she had her plate set, right? She wants her place set right here. And she's like, well, listen, wherever table we're going to, there needs to be a place setting for me because I'm going to be there. So I think that it's a little bit of competition, only because now she kind of sees how Carrie is reacting to her, especially in a time like this. And this is a very tell situation, right? So however the friendship goes through these ebbs and flows during this time will kind of almost solidify where the friendship goes, you know, to come in the future.
Exactly, especially since this is the second time we had something between them two early on here. First, it was after Big's ashes arrived, and Carrie called Stanford, and he did not call Charlotte. She did not call Charlotte to come over, and we saw how that affected Charlotte. Like, she felt left out. And I guess right here is like them finally trying to position, like, no, I know we've mentioned other people that may be possible the fourth member of the group without Samantha being there, but now maybe, just maybe, the fourth member was always there. We just didn't overly acknowledge him as that other member. He's the fifth Beatle. He's Ringo.
Leave my man alone.
Also, another big moment with Charlotte this episode. One, why is she still reading to that grown woman in the bed? I'm confused how old Rose is at this point. I thought she was maybe like 12-ish, preteen-ish. But now with the little book in her hand, I am not 100% sure how old she
I
is.
mean, she looks very teenish, but I'll say that I feel you should treat your children as children for as long as you possibly can, because especially
Hey,
in our world, they are growing up entirely too fast. So I think that if they still enjoy those moments with you, then by all means, those memories last, because we won't, obviously, as we all know,
yeah.
we have not
hmm
remained children. We are adults now, and I'm
We
pretty
could
sure
read
our
a Harry Potter
parents.
book. I ain't reading no little flip, little. That was a little teeny book. We could
uh,
read. We could read
I
a Harry
don't think
Potter
it was
book.
little. I thought it was like a medium-sized book.
It looked like a little book. Like we could read Twilight. I will gladly hop
No, no, no. I'm not doing any
in
of
the
that shit that you
bed
just
with
mentioned.
my daughter
So,
and read her
no,
Twilight as she goes to sleep at
no.
night. That is
You
perfectly
better,
fine.
you better read To Kill a Mockingbird or
Oh,
something.
wait
No
a minute.
damn.
I'm not trying to depress the baby before
I
bed.
mean, well,
But the big revelation here is when Rose tells her mom, I don't feel like a girl, and I've never felt like a girl. Like
hmm
this is to me, especially being in the year that we're in, it feels kind of present. It felt at times like, is it necessary? But it's still a big moment, especially for a character like Charlotte to have to go through something like this, because this is a character that
Yeah.
formulates everything. Everything's in line. And now we
hmm
saw earlier in this season, I think it's episode 2 with Rose, when she put on that penguin shirt over that beautiful dress
And the
that
penguin
just,
hat.
yeah, and the penguin the penguin hat, that just maybe that was foreshadowing that we would get to this moment. How did you feel about the reveal of this moment?
Um, I just felt like they wanted to be inclusive, and I get that absolutely. I'm just wondering. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it, to be honest, because I'm just thinking in my head. I think we've seen
Mm-hmm.
a similar situation where it's a girl. I would have wanted to see the opposite, where it's a boy who's
Oh,
having those feelings. Um, I think that they were gonna make Rose a trouble kid from the get go anyway. So I saw
yeah.
that coming from a mile away. So it wasn't surprising to me whatsoever. But I'm glad that she took it into consideration and she
Mm-hmm.
wasn't dramatic. She wasn't emotional. She just listened, which is something she doesn't do, often. So here she is tuning in her ears to listening to
Mm-hmm.
Rose. So yeah.
That's what I meant by how the moment felt. Because right
hmm
there, again, we kind of expect in certain shows where like the parent goes off the rails and
Yeah.
they feel so lost that their child tells them this that they don't know how to react to anything.
Right.
But Charlotte is on the other end of the spectrum here. Like this happens, this moment with her daughter happens. And instead of blowing up, the next scene we see with both of them as she's talking to the most over the top gay man in Sex and the City's universe, Anthony,
Yeah.
and who we're gonna can I briefly bring up? He has sexy men delivering bread to people. That
Hello. They're supposed to
if
be hot.
and for somebody to call and say the delivery boy was not hot, like
I
that,
mean, but that's subjective. I disagree with him. Hot is subjective because what's hot to one is not hot to the other. You know.
but this from that moment, and then from her fiercely defending her daughter, like I think no,
Mhm.
I'm supposed to do it this way. I'm not
Mhm.
supposed to, and for I think it brings up an interesting perspective that this gay man is telling her no, like not yet. They're still a child. Why are
Yeah.
you even giving them this freedom? And Charlotte's like, no, I believe that I need to do this to give her room to be herself. Like, what did you think about their conversation as it pertained to Rose's identity?
I thought it was interesting because that's realistic, to be
Yes.
quite honest, right? To be on the hetero side and then to come to somebody who is in the LGBTQ community and for them to tell you
hmm
like, no, like this is too soon. And I think that neither one of them are wrong. Anthony is going based on his own experience and Charlotte is going based off of what she's read and heard and what she thinks is
hmm
right. Um, I think just like anything when it comes to the situation, it's gonna take some getting used to, it's gonna take some time. But I think the main part that I got from Anthony was just that, give her a moment to like still grow because things change. I would say to identify her or him as he wants to be identified, right?
Or
But then
they, because
also
they didn't
leave
even like
room,
say which
yeah,
way.
or
Yeah.
they.
I think
So,
she
but
said
just
they.
leave room for growth.
I want to say,
I don't
didn't
think.
Charlotte say they? I think when they were in the hallway, when she was talking to Anthony, she said, no, they would like to not be called by this. I think she said they.
Oh, I didn't. I missed that part.
Yeah, we gotta go back. I've got to go back and watch it again to make sure of it. But I swear she said they, or I may be getting confused with Carrie's boss, Shay,
Hmm.
who's goes by they.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's just interesting to put this on such a young character so early in the season
Yeah.
and have her like give the revelation that it's set up to really, you would think, would cripple Charlotte, and instead Charlotte's like, nope, it's still my
Hmm.
child. Like nothing here changes. But
Yeah.
speaking of things that did change in this episode, one, we found out a couple of very interesting things about Miranda that clearly need to be discussed. First,
Yes.
we found out that she thought it was a good idea to allow her son and his girlfriend to have sex in her house.
She done lost her
The
mind.
Oh my god, the caucasity of it all just amazes me that that decision could
Listen,
be made.
what they say, white people, white people in.
Hey, because the race ain't racing. Because the moment Steve says to her, "Do you think it was a good idea to allow this to happen?" And she's like, "You want a time machine to go back?" That means at a young age, because he's supposed to be 17 here. So
Yeah,
like from
yeah.
14 to 15, I think
14,
again,
15.
this shows the boundary issues, I want to say,
Mm-hmm.
for Miranda. But it also
Mm-hmm.
brings up other issues. In this episode, we get the confirmation that we kind of alluded to in our last review, that she had a
Yep.
drinking problem.
Yep.
And we know it's a huge drinking problem, because who drinks Tito's and little things like a jug of that costs us like $20, and I'm not drinking
Yeah.
Tito's. So the point that she's chugging little Tito's down to try to get through the day, but also bringing up to Charlotte that her and Steve have not had sex in years.
In years. Did she say like 10 years?
Yeah, she just said years. I hope God to God she didn't say 10 years.
I don't
But then
remember. Maybe I was
her,
just, projecting.
yeah. But for her to also bring up, like, I don't know if we're married or if we're just
Or
roommates.
roommates. Mm-hmm.
And if we didn't have our son, what would we be?
Yeah.
What did you think about not just the revelation of drinking, because we'll get to that later, but just the revelation of her marriage and where her marriage currently stands?
One of the comments that we had on the last review mentioned that this was going to be Miranda finding herself, and I wrote that down in my notes when I was watching this episode. And I'm thinking, wow, yeah, this is about right, because I did agree with that comment. I thought that this was going to be Miranda's kind of come to moment. And while she's still processing things, clearly she just has a lot to juggle. But I absolutely think that there isn't really much passion in her marriage. You know
Mm,
what I mean? And so you can tell when there's passion, you can tell when there's fire, you can tell when there's desire, and it just doesn't come off in their relationship. It comes off very much like we're just going through the motions, because they've been doing it so long that it's just what what they've normalized. So I do find it interesting, but I would want to know, like, what's Steve's point of view on this,
mm.
because I'm wondering if he feels what she feels. You know what I mean? Because that would be a very interesting dynamic for him to not feel that way, and for them to have a conversation about
Wow.
where the relationship and the marriage could possibly go.
Not only that, because we understand how they came together in the first place. Like,
Hmm.
that was one of the flaws of their relationship, where is this a real relationship? So now
Yep.
for us to see them all these years later, and now for Miranda be question is this a real marriage? Like that's just an amazing thing that is still carrying over, that they still haven't dealt with their relationship issues. Now,
Agreed.
again, the other issue we have with Miranda, her drinking problem here.
Yep.
As we see her, just as Charlotte said, she also downed 2 glasses of wine, even though Charlotte, come on, I'm on
Probably
my
two
third right
bottles.
now. Like you can just stop that. That's not enough drinking there, okay? Okay, you're not gonna make all of us have drinking problems, Charlotte. Damn you.
Listen, I'm only on
But
one, so
but for her to also be going through this drinking problem at this time in her life, when she's also making career transition that now we understanding she also has a family issue going on. And then if we forward all the way to the end of the episode with her, when everyone leaves Shay's Netflix, because they did say Netflix
Oh, did they?
comedy special, that
Oh.
Miranda goes back there to we
Mhm.
see to try to unwind in search, as she clearly points out, in search of something different.
Yep.
And then we get that scene with her and Che at the end of the conclusion of her storyline for the episode.
Mhm.
What did you think of that? Because while it started off as just a simple shotgun, it clearly came and looked like something more after that.
So I really, first of all, I thought there was going to be some sort of lesbian porn in the backpack, right? I mean, I just went way left with it. But, the 3 little bottles of Tito's, and I'm like, wow. And I'm like, is Charlotte going to be bold enough to say something here where she, I mean, it's not the time or the place, so I get it, right? But, then going to the show and decide, I knew for a fact that she was gonna stay. Like, I knew it. I'm already hip to those type of games. You already know when your friend is like, "Oh yeah, you sure we can't stay? We have the V." Oh no, okay. Oh yeah, my Uber is gonna be here right after y'all. See ya. And I thought initially she was just going to have a few more drinks, but I'm wondering if Miranda has anxiety of some sort of, maybe, I don't want to call, I mean, it could be depression, but it's something going on with her. She's taken on a lot, but I think she's only the pressure is coming from herself. It's not coming from outside sources.
Yes.
And that's a different type of anxiety and feel that comes with it. And so I'm not surprised that it took a turn with Shay, because she was just too excited. That scene in the club where they are there, and Charlotte has her moment because she's talking about, like, we're non-binary, we're this, we're that, and when she came out to her family, Charlotte teared up, and I said, well, she's having her moment, reflecting on her daughter, and Miranda's having her moment where she's like, well, shit, like, what am I doing with my life? Where am I going from here? I don't like some things. What do I change? And so I kind of felt like, one, she would just have a conversation with Shara, in regards to, like, how do you do it? How, you always have those conversations with people. They're like, well, how are you just so free? And how do you live? Like, and we're just like, listen, lady, we just live. Okay. Like, we just wake up and we go without the plan. So I kind of saw that happening, but I didn't quite see it happening the way it did, but I wasn't surprised.
Yeah, because that looked like an extremely passionate shotgun.
It was an energy kiss. That's what it was. It was a we don't touch lips, but this is all my
look at that. Just feel like I should be slapping or something. Yeah, energy kiss. Now let's get to our final point of our review, and that is the final moments with Carrie here, as it's kind of foreshadowed in this episode when she's talking on the phone and she brings up she can't sleep in this apartment anymore because it just feels wrong. Yeah. And finally, at the end of this episode, as she gets home, one, I did not know that her Big's apartment was that close to her actual apartment. And then they give you the perfect Sex in the City moment as her going up the steps with those shoes, which I swear I saw those shoes in like an earlier season of Sex in the City, of her walking to her apartment in those shoes.
It's possible.
And just to end and say, and just like that, I'm finally home. How does it? How do you think that moment will be addressed moving forward? Because to me, that's a huge part of this show. The point that this was an apartment at first, as if you recall the Sex and the City or the movies, that she already had felt uncomfortable with because she didn't want to give up her apartment to move into this apartment. Now Big's gone and she's moving back to her old apartment, like she's officially moving on and starting over.
I mean, I'm not surprised. This is very Carrie-like. None of it is surprising to me. I think that it says a lot about her closing that chapter and finding a way to move forward in a space where she is comfortable, in a space where she feels like she can be herself and have some peace. So I'm not, this is probably one of my favorite parts of this episode, not to mention the part that you forgot, which was the
Oh,
absurdity that Charlotte threw out at Natasha, which was a very Lucas-like, and she said, "Oh my God, she's wearing flats."
well, I didn't want to say nothing because that's exactly what I was thinking when I saw them.
I
Again,
knew you were. I knew you were. As soon as I saw it, I
clearly,
said, "Oh shit, that's some shit Lucas would say to
because
me."
you got Charlotte is walking her dog in beautiful yellow heels. Carrie has marched over New York City in her tennis shoe heels, as she calls them.
Platforms at
And
that,
then,
yeah.
how dare Natasha, in your first scene, you show up and you have on flats? Are you even
Sandals.
trying anymore? What?
Uh,
Then we knew it was something wrong with Natasha. We understood that she may have been going through an execrential. I'm not going to say that word right. Execrential,
Existential. All right, let's move on.
extrajudicial,
Move on,
extrajudicial
folks.
life
Blame it on the liquor.
event,
Blame it on the
a life event that she had on flats on Sex in the City. And she wasn't going to school
listen.
like Miranda when Miranda wears her little flats. She was just like handling business in flats. No one handled
She
business in
said,
flats.
but she said, "Fuck it, I'm out of here," and my feet hurt. So this is it. But yeah, no, I think that this is a very interesting turn, and I feel like we're gonna get a very different, better, upbeat version of Carrie while she's still grieving because people are, this is not a fly by night type of situation. But I do
Mm-hmm.
think that she will be able to grieve differently when she's at peace because right now she has a lot of anxiety. And the ladies accused her of spiraling. It seems to be a lot of spiraling happening in these days in these shows that we're watching. But nonetheless, she is going to have her moment. She'll find her peace. She will recenter herself, and she will go back into the Sex and City and just like that world as
Wow.
her old self.
Another we done had 3 just like that puns in
We
one
did.
episode.
We
So
we did.
before we end this episode, we gotta throw a couple of questions to you, audience members out there. One, where do you think this is going to lead Carrie to with her going back to her old place?
Mm-hmm.
Next question, where do you see Miranda going? Will we see her spiral even more out of
The
control
AA.
as she sips wine?
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, how do you think Charlotte handled her daughter? Is he telling her she has a gender identity crisis going on in her life and she wants to be reaffirmed on who she is? How do you think she handled that? Did she handle it right? Let us all know in the comments below. This has been another review of Just Like That, brought to you by Big Gold Belt, where you can catch us every Thursday at 4 a.m. right after the episode drops on HBO Max. Peace, people.